All right. So let's get into the inevitable stages of growth. As I say, it's largely, from our version, it's largely based on the hierarchy of needs. This is something developed by a psychologist named Maslow, and it's probably how you've heard of it before. And this notion that there are these contexts that you find yourself as an individual in that really impact how you think about what your needs are, what you're striving for, and how you're going to make decisions, including moral decisions. I think we've seen in many stories where, like that Eddie Murphy film, Trading Places, where if you take away all the frillies, if you take away all the niceties of your life, and you get down to a place where you don't have food, water, shelter, then you are more likely to see the need to steal bread at that point. And we see that all around us, around the world. People in the most desperate situations are the ones who are willing to do the most desperate things to get their basic needs met. And as we get those needs met, we have other needs that start to emerge. So we're not going to think about our sense of belonging or our sense of purpose when we haven't eaten for a week, but we can aspire to that and can move to that as we start taking care of other needs and starting building this framework around ourselves. Now, a couple things that are important here. A lot of people don't like Maslow's hierarchy because they think it isn't necessarily explicit enough. But we put this in the mode of our world where we say it's a model. It has to be useful, not necessarily accurate. Yes, there's many other ways of thinking about this, but the most important ones are we will make decisions differently depending on on our context, on what's going on around us. And we should know that because we're going to make poor decisions or what would seem like poor decisions when we are desperate and we need food or shelter. Decisions we make then to achieve to satisfy those needs won't make sense necessarily when we get up to the esteem stage. So it's important to keep in mind. Also, you can move up and down in this model. You can go from feeling like you're safe and you're like, hey, I'm really working on coming up, belonging, then suddenly lose all that and get chucked back down to the physiological needs, and suddenly find yourself in a very different place, and it can be disorienting. All those things apply. So those are the important topics we like to talk about when we apply this to businesses. And in businesses, we call it the unavoidable stages of growth, but with all proper attribution to Maslow. And we talk about these in these five layers. And so we'll talk about these five layers, and we'll take a break, and we'll come back and talk about more stuff. But the beginning layer is survival layer. Just like with physiological, businesses that start out, and this is almost all businesses start out this way, where you haven't got a lot figured out. You've maybe got a bit of a vision, you maybe have a customer or two, but you don't really have any of the infrastructure of a great business yet. So more than likely, you're trying to figure out how to serve best your clients, and you're managing cash. And you're probably not looking far into the future because you're really just trying to make sure, hey, are we going to be around with enough time to figure this stuff out? That's the survival stage. And the two most important things about survival stage, maybe three, you're going to make mistakes. That's number one. And those mistakes are going to be because out of ignorance, because you haven't figured stuff out yet, or two, out of necessity. Hey, I'm going to take on this client, even though I know they're not going to be a great client, even though they're not a great fit. I just have to do it because I need the cash flow. And number two, you can't stay here long because you're burning your infrastructure. You're burning everything around you as you're trying to sort through this. This is the stage we have to get out of as soon as possible and get to that next stage, which we call sustainable. Now, sustainable is really where, unfortunately, we're 70-80% of the businesses that get started, this is as far as they get. They add some employees. They start developing what we call standard work, things that have to happen every day. They not worrying about cash. They're worried about profit more than likely. Hey, are we making money on what we're doing? And maybe you'll get a little bit better at this over time, but this is not what we would call a transferable asset. This is a business. You have probably bought yourself a job at this point. You have to still show up every day. Everybody, the founder, everybody else has to really, still dig in every day. Something comes along, can knock you back down in survival mode anytime. So we don't consider this a great place to stop, but this is where most people stop because they don't realize they're not really done yet. Yes, we made some profit. Yes, you're no longer in pain of survival stage. Yes, maybe you bought your summer home and you feel like you've achieved, but the reality is you've not really set yourself up for safety or for actually the most important thing, which is making it into a transferable asset. This is where we get to generational wealth, where we're actually building something that's going to be worth something even after I die. by the way, that happens. People die, divorce, dismemberment. um, all these things can happen to keep you from achieving what you want in that business, make the business not stable anymore. And you got to get to the place where you're past that. And that's where the scalable stage comes in. We've got some target market fit. People show up wanting our what we do or sell on a regular basis without us trying to convince them every time. That's one of the keys to that. Also, we've got some leaders around us, people that can do things. So I can go on vacation as the founder. So I can, if something horrible does happen, we're not out of business. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but we do want to make sure we've got something that looks like it could survive the founder or the founders and can actually start on a regular basis making some good money. At this point, we're more worried about dry powder, or we're worried about having the resources to be able to go after those opportunities we have to continue to scale. That's why it's scalable. I've got a scalable thing. That's what makes it a transferable asset. Someone might want to buy this because they can see we've demonstrated that, hey, if you put more resources in, more time, energy, and resources, you're going to go someplace. There's future profits to be gotten in expanding this business. And beyond that, there are a couple more stages. There's a success stage. And this is one where, and I've had clients land here and be shocked by what happened, even though I told them this was coming. This is where you start to be noticed by the market in a way you hadn't before. So you've probably always had some sense of competition in the marketplace, but this is where, as a coach, I started applying, I started usually earlier than this, but this is where it really matters a lot. The 5 forces. This is Michael Porter's 5 forces analysis, understanding all the things that eat away at your ability to have profit. As soon as you've been successful at something for a while, you're going to have more people show up and say, oh, I could do it cheaper than that, or I could do it better than that, or they're not doing a great job with this part of the market. So suddenly you find that you're not alone and that you people are actually gunning for you in this success stage. And there's things you want to do to bolster that. You want to make sure you've got a great team because you need to be able to maneuver around that. This is also, by the way, where we maybe had some sales and marketing before, but now it really matters a lot because my market presence matters a lot. I have to kind of build a moat around my presence. Before, maybe I had built a moat around my product. Now I got to build a moat around my presence as well. So my unjust rewards, I want bigger than what I deserve in the marketplace. So that's the success stage. The last one is the stewardship stage. This is very, just like with Maslow, very few people get to self-actualization. This is a place where few businesses get to, where you're really thinking about the long term. You're actually getting good at cannibalizing your own market because you are there with enough presence, enough resources to be able to think about the future and figure out how you're going to replace your own offerings. And, I've actually got a great story about this. So I was part of a number of businesses in Seattle during the 1990s. And I had a good friend that worked for Amazon in the early days, first 100 or so employees, and he worked in the warehouse. And he told me that sure enough, Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, sat every day at his crappy table desk with a crappy chair on his crappy computer trying to build the biggest company in the world. At about an hour before shipping deadline, he would call down to the warehouse. Hey, are we getting the books in boxes? Are we going to make shipping deadline? And if needed, he would go down and put books in boxes because that was the chop wood, carry water part of the business, right? He had to, the most important thing was making sure we make our shipping deadlines on a regular basis. And then very quickly he moved out of that, and he's made every one of these steps all the way up to the top of this pyramid, to the point where before he left Amazon, he told a number of interviewers, hey, my day involves making 3 great decisions that impact this business 20 years from now, right? Well, that's something you have to earn the right to get to. And sure enough, he became a different leader at every one of these stages. He rose to the occasion, and not all leaders do. Not all people want to. It's something I ask my clients on a regular basis. Do you want to be the leader at this next stage, or is it time for us to make another plan? And that's either transferring the asset or you taking a different role in the organization. Lots of options there, but it's the right question to ask because we don't want to apply what, the Peter principle and give you a job. I'm the founder, doggone it. I should be able to be in charge. And it's just not natural or easy. It's a choice you have to make. You have to learn to be good at that stage. All right. So that's the basic overview of the stages of growth. That's when we come back, we'll go into more details about the 3 takeaways I want you to take from that. It's a well-understood path. Along the way, you're going to need to do some new things, and you're going to have to stop doing some old things.